Let's begin with a strange confession. Most of us are better actors than we know. We wake up, step into a role, and perform it so convincingly that we forget it's a role at all. The responsible one, the tough one, the self-sacrificing one, the one who always fixes it. If I asked you who you are without your roles, your labels, and your history, would you have anything left to say? Or would there be a long, quiet pause that feels like standing on the edge of a cliff? Here's the hook. Life isn't demanding another performance from you. It's inviting you to remember you've been on a stage the entire time. Not to run off, not to tear down the set, but to glance at the audience and smile, because the moment you remember, the play becomes something else. It becomes lucid. The challenge is simple to describe and hard to do. We confuse the character for the player, and the player for the programmer. You've been living as the on-screen avatar, dodging problems, chasing scores, fearing game over, while forgetting that another you is holding the controller, and a deeper you wrote the code for this level. When you live only as the avatar, everything feels heavy and fated. When you access the player, choice returns. When you glimpse the programmer, meaning returns. Let's slow down. Why does the heavy feeling begin? Because we mistake seriousness for sincerity. We learned that if something matters, it has to hurt. We trained our nervous system to associate effort with tension. So we move through the day like a clenched fist. And when the world notices your clenched state, it mirrors it back. That's not metaphysics. It's ordinary psychology. People respond more openly to a relaxed face and a steady voice. Doors that seemed locked sometimes needed only a lighter hand on the handle. But there's a deeper reason the weight piles up. You didn't just forget to relax. You forgot how to switch roles. As a child, you could play a superhero at noon and a pirate by 5, collapsing into giggles when someone yelled dinner. You shifted effortlessly, no debate with yourself, no committee meeting. That fluidity is still in you. The trouble is that somewhere along the way, you learned that identity equals safety. So you gripped your role like a life raft. You stopped playing and started defending. And then the loops began. The same arguments, the same cravings, the same panic at 2 a.m., the same hollow afternoon. Call the loop whatever you want: karma, conditioning, habit, pattern. It behaves like a well-worn level you keep replaying. You know where the traps are and step into them anyway. You know the boss fight and still forget its weak point. Why? Because loops aren't powered by logic. They're powered by emotion and unexamined belief. Change the thought all you want. If the feeling stays the same, the level loads again. This is where your inner cast enters, not in abstract terms, but as real forces with distinct voices. The persona is your social armor, polished and presentable. The shadow is the closet you never opened, stuffed with traits you disowned. The inner child is the part of you that still believes in magic and also still remembers the first time love felt conditional. The inner critic is the security guard who thinks safety equals smallness. The ego is the strategist, useful when it serves, destructive when it rules. And behind them all, the self, quiet and spacious, the one who knows how to hold the whole theater stage, actors, audience, lights without collapsing into any single part. Here's the paradox you'll walk again and again. You are not one of these characters, and you are all of them. Refuse any one of them, and it hijacks your story. Befriend each of them, and they offer abilities you didn't know you had. This is not poetry, it's practical. The day you respect your shadow's brute energy is the day you stop outsourcing your power to other people's approval. The day you sit with your inner child's trembling is the day your adult decisions stop secretly begging to be rescued. If talk of archetypes feels airy, bring it to earth with a quick observation from research. Neuroscientists have studied what's called the default mode network, the brain's orchestra that lights up when we're lost in self-talk, rumination, and daydreaming. When it's overactive and poorly coordinated, our sense of me gets sticky. We loop. Practices that soften the grip: breath, focused attention, gratitude. Even awe can quiet that network just enough to create space. Space is the doorway between avatar and player. In that small space, you remember, I can choose a different move. Pause with me for a moment. Notice your breath without forcing it. Notice the sensations in your hands. Notice the way thoughts come and go on their own. Who is the one who notices? Don't reach for an answer. Let the question sit in your chest like a warm stone. You just felt the self for a second, not as an idea, but as a silent room that contains the furniture of your mind. You've always had that room. Most days, the TV is loud. Today, you turn the volume down enough to see the screen. So what keeps the volume up? Fear, yes, but not the obvious kind. There's the fear that if you stop performing, you will lose love. The fear that if you stop pushing, you will lose progress. The fear that if you stop proving, you will lose yourself. The first fear comes from childhood bargains. If I am good, I am safe. The second fear comes from culture's bargain. If I am productive, I am worthy. The third fear is older than both. If I stop, will anything be left? That last one takes courage to face. It's also where the door opens. Because this is the turning point. You do not have to abandon responsibility to step out of the trance. You can pay your bills and still play. You can raise a family and still feel like the sky is inside you. You can pursue excellence without turning your nervous system into a battlefield. In fact, you will do those things better when you stop doing them as a frightened mask. All right? Talk is easy. How do we begin to live this? You don't need 1,000 steps. You need a small set of moves done with sincerity, every day, until the game starts to respond. Here is the first move, and it begins tonight. Before sleep, hold a private council with your cast. Sit quietly. Name the role you wore today. Maybe you were the fixer again. Maybe you were the ghost who kept quiet. Maybe you were the champion who handled it all. Thank that role for protecting you. Then ask gently, who else in me didn't get to speak? Wait. Perhaps the child wants to draw. Perhaps the shadow wants to lift heavy things. Perhaps the critic wants a new job coach, not jailer. You don't force anything. You hear them out. When you lay your head down, you will feel a little less crowded. One meeting, that's all. 10 minutes. Tomorrow, they will fight less for the microphone. The second move is a tiny scene in the borderland between waking and sleep. In that drowsy doorway, your inner theater is most receptive. Pick one modest event for the next 24 hours. Don't make it grand. Ask for something that tests the radio line between your state and your world. Tomorrow I meet warmth where I usually meet friction. Tomorrow I receive a message that helps me take the next step. Tomorrow I stand tall in a moment I usually shrink. Now see it once, not as a fantasy, but as a memory. Hear a sentence you would hear if it already happened. Feel the bodily afterglow as if the scene just concluded. Then release it and sleep. The point is not control. The point is alignment. You're giving your inner director a cue, not building a cage. Why does that work at all? Aside from every spiritual story you've ever heard, there's a humbler explanation. Human attention is a filter. When you prime the filter with a clear feeling tone, your perception learns to notice matching threads in the day. The world didn't invent them just for you. You finally caught them. And if you've ever experienced the placebo effect or watched a stadium of strangers breathe in unison during a national song, you've already felt how shared emotion can organize matter. In subtle ways, heart rates synchronize, bodies sway, minds latch onto the same phrase. A clear inner signal is not nothing. It's a tuning fork. The third move is for the shadow. It will not join you because you recite sweet affirmations. It will join you because you give it a job. Take a situation that reliably pokes you: a relative's tone, a colleague's dismissive shrug, a quiet room that makes you anxious. Tell your shadow, I want your strength, not your sabotage. Stand behind me while I speak. Then, in the moment itself, place your feet firmly on the ground and drop your shoulders. It will feel like a heavier version of you stands up inside your skin. That's because a heavier version of you just did. Not the bully, the backbone. You didn't become someone else. You gave a banished part of you a seat at the table. The fourth move is what I call the 2-second bow. Several times during your day, bow invisibly to the level designer within you. Yes, in public. No, nobody will notice. It's a tiny nod. You're saying, I see the puzzle. I see the clue. I choose curiosity over complaint. This bow does something exact. It breaks the reflex to treat every obstacle as an attack. A bow changes a fight into an initiation. And initiations have doors. The fifth move is revision, not denial. Revision. If a moment goes badly, you will be tempted to replay it as a self-punishment. Instead, that night, replay it as a rehearsal. Hear the line you wish you had said. See the posture you wish your body had held. Feel the tone you wish had filled the room. You are not lying to yourself about what happened. You are training your nervous system to store a more skillful pattern for the inevitable sequel. Athletes do this. Musicians do this. Your life is not less worthy of practice than a championship or a concert. Let me anticipate the two objections that always arise here. First, isn't this just pretending? You already pretend. Every morning you pretend to be the same me who worried yesterday, even though today hasn't harmed you yet. Every afternoon, you pretend you have no choice, while making dozens of small choices without noticing. Every night, you pretend the story is fixed, and then you rewrite it again with worry. The question is not whether you pretend. The question is whether your pretending is conscious and kind. I am inviting a kinder pretending that slowly becomes truer than the old automatic one. Second, what about real suffering? Real suffering needs tenderness, support, sometimes medical care, sometimes time. Nothing here replaces that. What changes is the way you hold it. When you move from avatar to player to programmer, pain is still pain. Grief is still grief. Injustice still demands action. But the story around them stops being, this is happening to a helpless me, and starts being, this is part of a larger arc, and I can carry it as wisely as possible. That shift doesn't cancel the ache. It gives the ache a horizon. There's another question humming beneath the others. What happens if this actually works? Then your life will change in ways both small and startling. Not because lightning strikes, but because presence compounds. You will notice you're less reactive in the exact argument that used to swallow you. You will find yourself saying no without fireworks, yes, without apology. You will discover that some relationships soften and others drift. Both are a form of grace. You will feel silly delight at small things again. That last one is the quiet sign you're on the right path. When delight returns, the game is no longer a prison. It's a field. I promised this wouldn't feel like a lecture. So let's make it a conversation, right now, between you and the part of you that writes your story. Close your eyes for a breath. Ask inwardly, what role have I been overplaying this week? Wait for the first honest word, no polishing, no performance. Now ask what role wants a turn. Wait again. Maybe it's the artist. Maybe it's the builder. Maybe it's the parent who rests. Maybe it's the wanderer who takes a different street home. Don't argue with the answer. Tomorrow, give that role one scene. It can be tiny. A 5-minute sketch. A new route. A slower breakfast. A firmer sentence. A kinder one. Then tonight, before you sleep, visit the borderland and paint a small scene from tomorrow as a memory. Touch it with feeling once. Let it go. What if nothing happens tomorrow? Something already happened. You stepped out of the trance for a minute. You remembered you can hold the controller with steady hands. Keep going for a week. Then, a month. Your loops will begin to tangle and slow. The doorways will start to stand out, like bright pixels in a dark hallway. You will take one, and then another. There is one more practice I want you to try for the next 3 days. It's simple, and it might be the most subversive thing you do all year. Live 1 hour each day with zero identity. For 60 minutes, drop your usual stance. Speak 10% slower. Listen as if the other person might surprise you. Leave one opinion unspoken. In a shop, pick the item you never pick. On a walk, notice one color you never notice. In conversation, replace one defense with a genuine question. What do you mean by that? That hour will stretch you in the gentlest way. You will feel a little anonymous and a lot free. The mind loves labels because labels feel like railings. When you let go, you learn your balance. If you're still with me, you've already begun. You've paused twice. You've felt your hands. You've listened to the room inside you. You've mapped a scene for tomorrow. You've looked at your shadow without flinching. You've remembered to bow. You can do this without drama. Quietly, consistently, with a half smile that says, I see the code and I will play well. Let's end part 1 with a short picture you can carry into the night. There is a small theater in your chest. The seats are empty. The stage is lit. On the stage, there's a single chair. You take that chair. You wait. The cast gathers around you: persona, shadow, child, critic, champion, healer, trickster. Some stand with arms crossed. Some fidget. Some won't meet your eyes. You say, thank you for getting me this far. Tomorrow, we play differently. Not harder, cleaner, kinder. You watch their faces soften, just a little. You blow out the candle. Darkness. Then, a hum from the booth. The projector starts. If the words in this chapter stirred something, let them lead to action tonight. 10 minutes of counsel. One brief scene in the borderland. One silent bow during the day. One revision before sleep. And a small brave hour with fewer labels. You don't have to conquer anything to begin. You only have to stop pretending you are powerless within your own chest. The moment you let that possibility in, reality begins to shift, not because the world changes costume, but because you do. I'll meet you in part 2, with the control pad in your hands and a clearer look at how states harden into facts. For now, carry this with you. You are not stuck in the role. You are the stage, the actor, and the audience. When you remember that, even for a breath, the game turns friendly. Before you sleep tonight, ask yourself one question and write the answer on a scrap of paper you'll see in the morning. What is the smallest, truest move I will make tomorrow that my old self would have ignored? There's a simple pattern running through your days: state, choice, ripple, result. Most of us stare at the result and try to wrestle it into shape. We prod the ripple and complain about its direction. We argue with the choice after it's already been made. We rarely look at the state we were in before any of it started. State is the atmosphere inside you, not just a mood, not just a thought, an overall climate. It's the weight in your chest when you wake up, the tone behind your voice, the way your body sits in a chair. State is the invisible setting that colors everything you touch. And the strange part is how ordinary it feels. You can live in a cramped state for years and call it just how I am. Meanwhile, your choices keep orbiting the same feelings, and your life keeps reflecting them like a patient mirror. If part 1 was a soft nudge to remember you're more than a role, part 2 puts the controller in your hands. We'll work with state on purpose, the way a musician tunes before a concert. Not to fake a smile. To choose a frequency that makes skill, love, and clear action easier. Let's start with a quick glance at the body. Your nervous system isn't trying to ruin your dreams. It's trying to keep you alive. When it senses threat, real or imagined, it narrows your options. Tunnel vision, shallow breath, old loops. You reach for the familiar because the familiar once kept you safe. But safety without aliveness isn't safety. It's a padded room. The fastest way out of that room is also the oldest: breath, posture, and attention. In studies of stress response, slow exhalations signal no tiger to the body. Posture matters too. A collapsed chest whispers hide, while an open ribcage says we can meet this. Where attention goes, the brain's filters follow. None of this is mystical, and all of it is the opening move for deeper work. When the body steadies, the player has a chance to choose something better than the avatar's reflex. Now to the larger claim: inner pictures and feelings aren't just private entertainment. They tilt your day. Psychologists call it priming. Athletes call it mental rehearsal. Artists call it living from the finished painting. Call it what you like. The pattern is the same. An inner scene, felt as now, tutors your body and attention to look for matching moves in the world. And sometimes, yes, the world seems to rearrange in ways that feel uncanny. You meet the right person in a hallway you almost didn't walk down. A sentence lands in your inbox that sounds like your bedtime rehearsal. You can call it chance. You can also admit that your state placed you in the path of that chance. Here's the quiet rule: you don't get what you want. You get what you are willing to be. Want can be desperate and far away. Being is close. Want says someday. Being says, let me carry this tone right now. You can carry the tone of calm leadership before the title shows up. You can carry the tone of tenderness before the apology arrives. You can carry the tone of prosperity before the contract is signed. Not as a performance, but as a rehearsal space where your nervous system learns a new normal. You may ask, am I pretending? Not if you treat it like training. A pianist plays the same passage slowly until the fingers know it. A runner repeats intervals until the lungs adapt. You're practicing a state so your choices stop defaulting to fear. When the moment comes, your body will reach for the new note because you gave it a taste before the concert. Let's make this concrete. I want you to adopt a simple protocol for the next 7 mornings. It takes 3 minutes. No props, no candles, no special chair. The purpose is to set your state before the day drafts you into its weather. Sit on the edge of your bed. Place one hand on your chest and one on your belly. Breathe in through the nose for a count of 4. Hold for 2. Breathe out for 6. Do that 5 times. On the 5th exhale, say quietly, I choose the tone first. Then ask, if my life already matched my deepest aim, what would my body feel like right now? Don't hunt for fireworks. Notice one small shift: shoulders lower, jaw softens, a tiny warmth near the sternum. Keep your attention there for 20 seconds. Now name one sentence from that state. Just one. I talk slowly and mean every word. Or I see people clearly. Or I move through money conversations with ease. Speak it once, as if it's already your normal. Stand up. Walk into your day like you're wearing a new jacket. That's it. 3 minutes. You'll be tempted to judge this because it's small. The mind likes big gestures, but skill loves repetition, not drama. You are teaching your nervous system a new home base that takes a short daily whisper, not a weekly crisis. Night is a different doorway. In that borderland between waking and sleep, your inner theater is unusually receptive. In part 1, you tried a small scene. In part 2, we shape that scene more carefully. Pick one arena that matters: health, love, craft, money, service. Choose a single proof of life that would be obvious if the shift were already true. Not a grand finale, a signpost. If it's love, maybe it's the feel of a hand on the small of your back as you laugh in a kitchen. If it's craft, maybe it's an email that says we'd like to publish your piece. If it's money, maybe it's the weight of a debit card that doesn't tremble in your hand. Keep it simple. Your scene should be 10 seconds long. You're not writing a film. You're planting a seed. Now close your eyes. Let your breathing slow. Float at the edge, where thoughts thin. Place the scene in first person. Hear one line you would hear, touch one texture, feel one clean emotion that would naturally follow. You're not forcing jubilation if what you'd really feel is quiet relief. Loop it a few times, then fall asleep inside it. Do this for 7 nights. If halfway through you get bored, good. Boredom means the nervous system is normalizing the state. Stay one more night after boredom. That 8th night often carries the imprint deeper than any fireworks. Common mistakes here are subtle. You peek. You check your phone the next day to see if the world obeyed. That peeking yanks the seed out of the soil to make sure it's growing. Stop checking. Start being. Another mistake. You treat the scene like a bargain. If I do this, you must give me that. That grasping tells your body you don't have it yet. Better to treat the scene as a rehearsal for a role you've already been cast in, a role that fits your shoulders. You're not begging. You're breaking in new shoes. Let's talk about friction, because you'll meet it. Old states don't retire quietly. They knock on the door and ask for their room back. You'll notice the familiar heavy morning, the old thought like a rut in the road, the same small panic before a call. When that happens, don't stage a war. You're not weak for feeling it. You're a person with a history. Give the old state a simple phrase, I see you. Sit beside me while I choose. Then do one tiny physical thing that marks the choice. Change where you're standing. Splash water on your face. Open a window. Bodies believe gestures. You're telling your system, we are not in that hallway anymore. It helps to know that your brain carries 2 powerful habits, prediction and confirmation. It predicts what's likely to happen, then filters for what confirms the prediction. That loop saved your life when you needed to spot tigers in tall grass. It's less helpful when you're trying to start a new chapter, but your inner scout keeps shouting, same danger as last year. When you rehearse a state that feels safer than fear, prediction begins to tilt. Confirmation follows. You start spotting reasons your new chapter could be real. No magic necessary, just a human brain that updates its model when you consistently feed it clean evidence. Now, a word on language. Most of us talk in ways that pin our state to the mat. We say, I'm just not good with confrontation, or money makes me anxious, or I always push people away. That's an incantation. It seals a loop. Replace I am with I've been practicing. I've been practicing avoidance is lighter than I'm a coward. I've been practicing scarcity is lighter than I'm bad with money. Practice can change. Identity fights change. Speak like someone who can learn. There's a practical middle ground between inner rehearsal and outer steps. Use both. If you're tuning the state of generosity around money, open a tiny automatic transfer to savings the same week you rehearse the feeling of sufficiency. If you're tuning the state of clean honesty in love, send one short message that tells the truth without drama. If you're tuning the state of ease with your craft, ship one small piece of work each week, even if it's rough. The inner weather invites the outer act. The outer act reinforces the inner weather. A loop, but a good one. Let me offer 3 short scenes from people who tried this, not as a promise, but as texture. A designer who felt invisible rehearsed a state of quiet authority for 10 nights. The scene was simple, a client leaning back and saying, let's go with your instinct. She noticed no miracle on day 2. On day 11, during a meeting she would usually shrink in, she found herself speaking later and slower. Not a speech, just slower. 2 days later, the same client replied to her draft, let's trust your eye. She laughed privately, not because she thought she cast a spell, but because she recognized the taste of the state she had been practicing. A teacher who dreaded staff rooms rehearsed I belong here without bending for a week. The scene, pouring tea while 2 colleagues chatted easily nearby. The body calm, no inner bracing. Day 5, nothing. Day 7, she walked in and did the small part she had rehearsed, pouring tea slowly. Shoulders down, no darting eyes. Someone asked about her weekend. She answered in 2 sentences, not a play for approval, not a retreat. I didn't win anything, she told me later, but it didn't cost me to be in the room. That was the win. A young parent, terrified of money, rehearsed I carry numbers without buzzing for 2 weeks. The scene, checking a bank app without a stomach drop, closing it, moving on. He paired it with a tiny transfer and a written plan for the next bill. A month later, the numbers weren't perfect, but he noticed the strangest thing. The app no longer felt like a courtroom. It felt like a tool. Tools are easier to hold than judgments. You may still wonder, where does grace fit in? Do I have to manufacture everything? No. There's room here for surprise, for timing you didn't invent, for help you didn't schedule. Think of what you're doing, less as pushing reality, and more as widening your doorway so gifts can find you without tripping. We should also talk about the inner voice that mocks all of this. It will say, so now you're pretending the universe is a vending machine. Or, who do you think you are? Or if it were this easy, everyone would do it. That voice isn't your enemy. It's the part of you that learned to avoid disappointment by lowering your aim. Thank it. Then give it a new job, quality control. Help me spot places I'm slipping into fantasy. Help me keep the scene small and honest. Help me pair it with real steps. Critics relax when they're given a task instead of a muzzle. There's one more piece to cover before we close part 2, revision. You practiced it briefly in part 1. Here, we refine it because it can change the way your history drags on your ankles. If a moment bothered you today, replay it tonight without the sting. See yourself holding your spine differently. Hear your voice drop 1 octave. Watch the other person's face soften as you stop trying to convince and start telling the truth. You're not erasing what happened. You're teaching your body a better pattern for next time. Brains update memories with every recall. Why recall only the version that wounds you? Do this for 7 nights with one specific scene. Don't shop around for a new wound each night. Pick one. Polish it. On day 8, you might walk into a similar situation and feel a tiny gap where there used to be a trap. Step over it. That's the work paying rent. To keep all of this from becoming a fog of practices, end each day with a 30-second debrief. 1 line in a notebook. State I set. Scene I rehearsed. 1 ripple I noticed. That's enough. The point is not to build a scrapbook. The point is to stay in relationship with your own experiment. Before we close, let's revisit the core rhythm in simple words. You tune your state on purpose. You rehearse a small proof of life at night. You pair it with a modest outer move. You revise any scene that went sideways. You write 1 line before sleep. Then you let the week surprise you. You won't get applause at first. The world often claps last, but you will feel a slow, private shift, less bracing before calls, less bargaining with your reflection, less hunger for signs from people who never learned how to give them. That quiet is worth more than noise. When you wake tomorrow, you'll have a choice point most people sleep through. Do I adopt yesterday's weather or set my own? If you forget, fine. Catch yourself at noon. Set it then. If you forget again, set it at 5 p.m. The day is full of entry points. The game allows late arrivals. Let's finish part 2 with a short closing scene for tonight. You're sitting at the edge of the bed. The room is dim. Your phone is face down across the room. You breathe in for 4, hold for 2, out for 6. You ask for 1 sentence from the state you choose to carry tomorrow. It arrives. You don't judge it. You repeat it once, not loudly, but like a promise whispered into your own shoulder. Then you slip into the borderland and run your 10-second scene once or twice. Not a prayer, not a demand, a rehearsal for a truth you're willing to live. Lights out. You are not faking your life. You are learning to steer it from the inside out. That's not denial. That's good craft. I'll meet you in part 3 to work with your inner cast more directly. How to give the critic a better job. How to harness the shadow without burning the house down. How to let the child bring color without running the budget. And how to keep playing when the level throws a storm at you. For now, keep it simple, keep it honest, and give your nervous system room to learn. Carry this thought into sleep. You don't force the world to change by clenching. You invite it to match a tone you can hold without shaking. And ask yourself on paper, before you turn off the light, what state will I practice for 3 minutes tomorrow morning? And what is the one tiny act that will make that state visible in the real world? We've reached the third movement, and this is where the work becomes less about ideas and more about relationship. Relationship with your shadow. Relationship with your critic. Relationship with your inner child. Relationship with the part of you that senses storms before the clouds even gather. Relationship with timing, with patience, with the long arc of becoming someone your nervous system can trust. You've already felt the difference between performing your life and participating in it. You've seen that when you set a state deliberately before the world sets it for you, your choices soften and sharpen at the same time. Now we go a layer deeper, because there's no mastery of the game without meeting the cast inside, who have been running subplots behind your back. Let's start with the critic. Most people try to suffocate their inner critic. They try to drown it with affirmations or mute it with distraction. That never works, because the critic isn't trying to hurt you. The critic is trying to protect you from humiliation, from failure, from rejection, from a wound it remembers in vivid color. When you silence the critic, it screams louder because it assumes you're about to run naked into danger. So instead of silencing it, give it a new job description. Right now, your critic thinks it must predict disaster. Teach it that you want it to predict fit instead. When you're about to send a message, start a project, or step into a conversation, ask your critic quietly, is this aligned with who I want to be? That one sentence takes the critic from jailer to editor. Editors refine. They don't paralyze. You're not firing the critic. You're promoting it. Now, the shadow. The shadow is a vault where you locked away parts of yourself because once upon a time, they got you in trouble. Maybe anger scared your family. Maybe confidence offended your elders. Maybe sexuality was treated like a wild animal. So you labeled these energies dangerous and hid them like contraband. But they didn't disappear. They leaked sideways into jealousy, sarcasm, self-sabotage, procrastination. The shadow doesn't want revenge. It wants employment. To give it employment, you have to let it speak. And you don't do this in a dramatic therapy session. You do it in small, controlled containers. Here's a simple practice. Once a week, sit somewhere private and ask, what have I been trying to feel but suppressing? Then free write for 5 minutes. No punctuation rules. No moral judgment. Just raw data. Afterward, pull one sentence from the page that indicates a need, not a tantrum. Not a threat, a need. That is the shadow's contract for the week. Tend to that need quietly. If the need is rest, rest. If the need is more fire, lift heavy. If the need is sensuality, turn down the lights and move slowly. The shadow becomes loyal when it's heard. Now the child. Every single adult carries a younger self inside. Not a frozen photograph, but a living presence. This child remembers the first day someone praised you for achievement instead of presence. The first time you learned that love could be withdrawn. The first moment you thought, something about me needs fixing. That child isn't weak. That child is your access to wonder, surrender, play, imagination, risk, forgiveness. If the child is unconsulted, life becomes all strategy. No wonder it feels like grinding gears. So once a day, ask the child one question. What feels like right now? If the answer is step outside for 2 minutes, do it. If the answer is change the song, do it. If the answer is draw a line on paper, do it. The adult sets the direction. The child sets the color. Without both, your reality becomes grayscale. Now the storms. Even when you do all this, life will test your tone. You'll have days when the old loop snaps at your heel, when your nervous system gets punched by surprise, when you wake up with the heaviness of an old level. This is where the real player emerges. A storm is not a punishment. A storm is a stress test. It asks, will you collapse back into the avatar, or will you stay in your chosen tone even while your hands shake? Your job in storms is not to solve every problem. Your job is to preserve 1 inch of spaciousness, 1 small gesture of sovereignty. Take 1 slow breath. Drop your shoulders. Feel your feet. That's the route. From that route, choose a single move that keeps you in the lane of your chosen state. Don't try to be heroic. Be steady. There's one more layer to this game that often gets missed. Mastery is quiet. The loudest breakthroughs rarely survive. The subtle ones do. The quiet shift from reacting to responding. The quiet shift from collapsing into old loops to noticing them with curiosity. The quiet shift from begging reality to obey you to becoming someone reality flows toward because your energy has become orderly. You don't need to shout. You don't need to prove. Quiet mastery is felt. Now, a final integration practice, one that binds parts 1 and 2 into muscle memory. Every night, for the next 7 nights, ask yourself 3 questions in writing. Where did I act from the avatar today? Where did I act from the player today? Where did I spot the developer today? This journaling is not evaluation. It's orientation. The more you can see which layer you operated from, the faster the layers stop blending into confusion. And then, this is key, write 1 sentence that acknowledges your progress, no matter how small. I caught myself mid-pattern and paused. I said no without explaining. I asked a genuine question instead of defending. I felt my breath even while afraid. These are seismic victories disguised as gentle adjustments. Before we close this entire script, there's one truth that may take months to fully swallow. You don't rise by conquering the game. You rise by playing it consciously. Nothing in this world changes sustainably through force, but everything changes through coherence. When your inner cast is in harmony, the external world feels less like chaos and more like choreography. So tonight, when you lie down, pause for 3 seconds before sleep and whisper, I am willing to see myself clearly tomorrow. That sentence alone can rewire entire chapters. We end here, not with a command, but with a choice. Are you willing to be the one who stops acting the old role out of habit and begins shaping reality from the quiet, steady center of the self? If the answer is yes, then tomorrow is already lighter. And one last reflective question before you close this video or page. Which part of you, critic, shadow, or child, will you invite to walk beside you tomorrow instead of dragging behind you?